Hey everybody, thank you for watching. Today I wanted to talk about the timeline in the Bible. A couple days ago I got these little things on my door, my garage door. I'm pulling up to the driveway and the garage door's going up and I see this stuff on my garage and I'm thinking I had to put the garage door halfway down and scooch under and take it off. One of them says, what am I thinking? It's got a picture of a rock there. If that rock is thinking, it's a little bit smarter than the guy that put that on my garage door. Most normal people would put flyers on your front door so you can easily take it off. But anyway, before I comment on some of the literature, they're there to try to engage you, to pique your curiosity. And you know, they say, can you name these historic spiritual leaders? And I'm like, no. So naturally you'd think that if you turned over the back and you saw this writing there, that it would say, the one in the upper left is this guy, but no, that's not how these people work. Okay, they want to gauge you and ask you questions and make you think. Now, before I even address anything that's written on the back of any of these cards, we're going to talk about the Bible's timeline real quickly here. But you could take any Bible and split it into two sections. As you see right there, the big thick section, that's the Old Testament, and the thinner section is the New Testament. When you read this, do you ever consider how much time actually goes by from Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden in Genesis up to Exodus, and then Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and then the lesser prophets or minor prophets? How much time goes by during all that? The first book of Genesis takes up about 1,500 years. And then you've got the other books of Moses. So you got about 3,600 years of history in the Old Testament. Now throughout that 3,600 year history, God gives the Jews all the rules, the mitzvahs, the commandments. And there's 613 of them. They are all found in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. After the death of Moses, there are no more new rules, new mitzvahs. All right? No prophet, neither Isaiah, Ezekiel, or Jeremiah, ever came up with a new commandment. Why? Because they would have been thrown out on their ear, because God says in the Torah that no command shall be added, nothing shall be deleted. All right. Now, so that's the Old Testament, and God tells the Jews all kinds of other things. Like, don't be like the pagans. Don't be chopping down trees and bringing them into your house and adoring them with silver and gold and things like that. That's what pagans do. We don't. And pagans believe in multiple gods. We don't believe that. The Jews believe in one single God, creator of heaven and earth and all things in it. And he has command over all those things. He has power over all of them. That's where Judaism and Christianity seem to separate. Christians have this concept of Satan and Lucifer, fallen angels, and this and that. And like God created a big hodgepodge of stuff and angels, and all of a sudden one of them got out of control and he has no more control over it. I think that's kind of disrespectful to say that God doesn't have control over something. But anyway, let's talk about the New Testament real briefly in its timeline. The New Testament is about Jesus Christ. There's 4 Gospels and a bunch of letters and then the book of Revelations. But how long does the New Testament time frame take place? Is it anything like the 3,600 years of the Old Testament? No. Is it even half that? No. 10%? No. The whole ministry of Jesus takes place between 1 and 3 years, depending on which gospel you believe. And then after that, we have the book of Acts, which tells the story of the Apostle Paul and what happened after Jesus died. And all those letters you see after Acts, most of them were written by the Apostle Paul. And that's important to remember too, that the epistles and the letters that you see after Acts, most of them were written before the Gospels. And it's also important to remember that the first Gospel written was the Gospel of Mark. They also took the Old Testament and rearranged those books. So that way the book of Malachi flows nicely into Matthew video. I just wanted to give you a brief rundown of what we're looking at as far as the timeline of the Bible. We have a 3,600 year history that's all written in Hebrew. Hebrew is the language of God. And then we have like a period of a few hundred years where nothing really happens, there's no prophets, and then along comes Jesus. And the people that wrote the Gospels, they're not writing in Hebrew, they're writing in Greek, in a foreign land. And they're written by people who apparently choose to remain anonymous. In the Old Testament, we have God saying, look, I am the only God, there's no other gods, I don't share my glory with anybody. And then in the New Testament, we have Jesus saying, look, I performed some miracles, I said some parables, I said a bunch of profound things that are mostly came from the Old Testament, but still people say it was my words and they're profound. And then we have Jesus saying, believe in God, but also believe in me.